Mark, hi.
Hi,
You're
hi Andre.
welcome. Thanks for your time. I want to say to the audience that Mark Highton is my friend. He's a partner of Kyivstrat Pro. He represents a nation which is very important for Ukraine and support. It's a British nation, Brits. They help us a lot. And thanks, Mark, for your support of my country. I know that Great Britain was one of the drivers of all Western support of Ukraine. Still, you are drivers, and I cannot ask you. Maybe I shouldn't, but I want to ask you about some words about the political situation in
Sure.
your country. But our main trend information area now is military operation of
Yeah.
Ukraine in Kursk, and you know that the British tanks challenges were used there, and your support it's very important, especially now. How you see the consequences of this operation for the perception of this situation in the West, in Great Britain and the English speaking world? How you see the consequences? Because we don't know all the strategy, all the military things, stuffs, but how you see the consequences so far?
Certainly. So I would say that at the beginning it was a shock. I think in international for the international media, for the press, and for military strategists in the United States, in the UK, elsewhere. This idea that that Ukraine could launch this shock and preemptive attack in Russia, actually achieving the majority of its goals within, say, a 12 or 24-hour period, with, as is claimed, limited number of casualties. As little as 10. It's being claimed. So, I think the pros that we see here are the planning and the logistical coordination with combined missile and other arms of the army and air force working well together, and that comes down to partly of what you're saying about the use of these weapons and actually the ability to use them to attack Russia. And I think this has been a big shift in the fact that many European countries in the UK and the US have started to accept and bless the idea of an offensive campaign. So I would, kind of say that this discipline that I think the most important thing was the discipline, because Russia is a large country. There were inexperienced Russian troops. The analysis we hear is that there was a collapse of the defensive system and a wide network of trenches running maybe 6+ miles in depth that were taken very, very quickly. And the important thing that were taken and held and to move forward. But what could have happened is an all-out Ukrainian attack, which could have been disastrous in terms of its ability to keep coordinated attacks and pressure on Russian forces.
So far, I think you mentioned the most important concept in the world: preemptive strike. I think from this perspective, from this perception, and from this point of view, this operation so far is successful. But we also should think about the direction of Russia and Russian Federation. And before the interview, we mentioned that it's actually first invasion of other country into Russia since
the Second World War.
Yeah. So there were a lot of rumors, a lot of information about the possible reaction of Russia. Some experts still say it's about nuclear potential strike. Some other ideas also exist. But what do you think? What the main target may be of Russian revenge and counter-strike, if we speak? Whether it's Ukrainian infrastructure or new military operation in east or north or south, how you see it? I mean, from first of all the political perspective, because for Putin there should be, for him personal, it's some kind of should be revenge. So he has to sell something to the Russian people.
So I think one thing we could wrap up in terms of the invasion. The other success is obviously the fact that Putin has to divert experienced troops from the eastern sector. He has to actually kind of move them around the front, and these deployments are going to take time. He can't afford for these columns to be in open ground and to be attacked across the border. So there has to be a deep reorganization, theoretically at least, and this will take time. So Russia was mentally about to stage this attack on Sumy region, and they were focused on this. And suddenly Ukraine has launched a preemptive attack, and Russia now has to respond. So how will that respond? They can't respond with absolute force immediately, and let's say it's going to take them a long time to reorganize the armed forces. And actually, the use of these modern weapon systems means that they are not comfortable in using air or other traditional arms of their military. So we're coming back again to this all-out total war by focusing on infrastructure. And this is the one thing that the Russians and Putin continue to do, and to try to demonstrate on their media through interviews with troops and that have been captured and so forth, to demonstrate how uncomfortable they are making life for Ukraine. So I think, and the bottlenecks in Ukraine's energy system and in its ability to respond quickly to these tactical strikes, these are real and they're quite serious.
I agree that the most probable strike or counterstrike of Russia may be our infrastructure. So I think the majority of our decision-making politicians realize this and realize, as well as the people, and I think we should be ready for the deterioration of situation in infrastructure. We actually are ready for such kind of situation. However, what are the problematic points do you see in the next 6 months and the next year, on the eve of the winter? If you speak about energy sector, about the economical problems, what the future of our economy do you see, and how we can survive our economic problems?
Yeah, so there's a number of trends that we're seeing, obviously. So Russia destroyed a lot of thermal generation 8 weeks ago, 11 weeks ago, and they destroyed over 2.5 gigawatts of thermal generation, and over 4 gigawatts of thermal generation. And they want to replace 2 gigawatts over the next 12 months, 6 to 12 months. But the replacement of this sort and this level of thermal generation is very non-trivial. Then one is looking at decentralized energy systems. So you could be looking at far smaller thermal units. But again, there's a bottleneck in terms of the total number of units, and the ability to put them in place fast enough and connect them to the grid. And then you're talking about other decentralized systems, which is things like solar and wind. And predominantly, when we've looked at ministries and different government departments, they've been talking about the progress made with solar, with some small-scale battery systems. Now, if we're looking at wider trade trends, we have to ask, where are these systems coming from, and what kind of impact does this have, not only on an environment in terms of something Ukraine is committed to net zero and these ideas, even though they're in a war, but what other kind of economic impact in terms of production has it had? And you see predominantly that these systems are coming from China and coming from Turkey. And then you see some other outlying trading partners that have really changed in the rankings, like Spain, as you know, and obviously Germany has always been a strong supply partner to Ukraine. But, the fact that you are having maybe so many solar and electrical systems that are coming predominantly from China. And that might be from Spain, it might be from somewhere else, and particularly Turkey. And then you've got to think, for example, where do the raw materials come to produce these things? And when you think prior to the war, Ukraine was sending about 80% of its lithium and a significant portion of its titanium to China. You look at this circular trade, where through Turkey and other immediate trading partners, you're probably having these commodities, and these are then probably going to China. They're being processed. There's this cycling that is taking place, and then these high-cost products are being returned to Ukraine. So you're actually seeing, by looking at solar, particularly in these decentralized grids, obviously it's generating electricity. It doesn't resolve the issues of thermal production, which is a big problem. And it also perhaps introduces a level of moral hazard, where you are working with parties who are in bed with people that are deliberately breaking sanction regimes.
Well, thank you for your economical analysis. And my last question concerning the political situation in your country. I remember very, very good pre-election period in Great Britain. I was in Great Britain 6 months ago, and I saw a lot of rallies in London and Trafalgar Square, where the politicians from different political parties made different statements concerning the inevitable support of Ukraine. And I do see that your government, new government, and the majority of the people still support Ukraine. However, what may change in the future, and we speak about the maybe risks, economical and geopolitical challenges on the eve of the elections in the United States, what your government or what politicians in Great Britain may do, how can use this situation if we speak about Ukraine?
So in terms of the United Kingdom, obviously the government's been in power for around about 6 weeks.
Quite early,
Generally it's been a good transition. We saw some fantastic speeches in the House on all sides, despite the great loss that the Conservative Party experienced in the election. But generally speaking, it was taken in good grace, and there's been a fair and peaceful transition. Certainly not like what we saw in the US or the kind of rhetoric that was witnessed in France. So I think this was very much a positive thing. What I would say is that there's been a lot of talk about the weakening of the UK's economic position, but the UK is still the fifth largest country in terms of GDP. We are still growing. In terms of growth forecasts, we have the highest growth forecasts out of any European country, which has been positive, and that's hardly believable just a few months ago. So there is a stability in the banking system, in the money markets. And this is something that is a strength of the UK. Now, the other thing we've seen is the current government looking to increase public sector pay, looking to appeal to the trade unionist movement, to actually build a greater level of solidarity in terms of a more centralized bargaining power. And on the one hand, this is understandable for the Labour Party, given their traditions. But equally, we must bear in mind that some of the trade unions still support actively groups like Stop the War. So I'm not suggesting that this is going to actually create I'm not suggesting there is a political problem in the country, but I'm just saying objectively, whilst the Labour Party is trying to bring these people together cohesively, but equally because they have a greater representation, this could in the medium to longer term create more stresses in regards to traditional trade unionism and their objectives.
Thank you very much for your objective assessment, for your estimates of situation, and thanks for your support.
Thank you very much, Andre.
Thank you.